so at the time, I would go in, and I don't know if you ever walked into a bank and kind of noticed that they have all the tellers, and then they have one teller at the end that says merchant teller,
Yeah.
and that's where businesses do their drops, their bags of money. Those merchant tellers usually have 15, 20 grand with them. This was back then, this was 2000, I want to say 2008.
Yeah.
And so I would go in and I'd hit these merchant tellers, um, come out with 10, 15 grand. Well, on this day, I had taken a shitload of Xanax. I was high as a kite. Like the note was all scribbly. You could barely
Oh
read it because I was
shit.
shaking so bad. And I went to take my friend's car at the time, and they saw how high I was, and they knew what I was doing, and they didn't let me. So I ended up walking over to my buddy. My buddy had a jewelry shop around the corner. So I went walking over to his jewelry shop and asked if I could borrow his car because I was going to run up to In-N-Out. And so he saw how high I was, and he's like, nah, you ain't borrowing my car. I'll take you. And I'm like, shit, man, I can't tell my homeboy like I'm trying to go rob a
Oh
bank.
shit. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but I let him take me, man.
Oh, I knew it was coming, man. I
Hey,
knew it was coming, man.
cold, huh? Cold.
I just like to say, man, you are not having it bad if you did not say you let him take you anyway. Now I know
Hey,
you
I
were
was
in
in a
that
bad
desperate
spot,
mode.
dude.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was desperate. I was desperate, man. Hey, I know he's probably gonna see this too, and I'm trying to reach out and
Oh
apologize, man. But so,
shit, man.
anyways, that's a
Yeah,
whole nother story.
yeah,
Anyways,
yeah.
so he's taking me down to In-N-Out. I tell him like, hey, I gotta go by the bank and pull out some cash. My people put in a deposit in my account. I'm gonna go pull out some cash. He's like, all right. So we pull over. The way it was set up, In-N-Out was over here across the parking lot from a Wells Fargo bank. I can speak on all this because I got busted for it,
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so we park over by the In-N-Out. I jump out of the car, run into the bank. The merchant teller line is hella long. So I'm like, screw it. I just walked up to the first teller, slid the note underneath. She looks at me and eyes wide open. And I see her go under and hit the button. And then she hands all the cash under because I tell her I don't want the cash in an envelope or a bag because I don't want to put a die pack in it. So she just handed all the cash. It was like, dude, it was not. It was like $1,800.
Oh my god.
Slid all the cash underneath. So I grabbed the cash. I start walking out. I'm just casually strolling out. Like nothing. I'm so high at this point. So I'm casually strolling out. Well, my buddy, a spot had opened right in front of the bank. So he
Oh
moved his
my
car right in
god.
front of the bank. So I walk out, jump in his car, and he's like, all right, we're still going to In-N-Out, right? And I'm like, yep. So we
Oh
pull out,
shit.
pull around, and I don't know if you've ever been in In-N-Out drive-through. The freaking line's long as hell. Well, this drive-through, the way it wrapped around, it went around the back side of it. So we get in line and we're ordering.
I'm just picturing this, man. This shit's
Yeah,
hilarious. Okay,
we're
okay.
ordering double cheeseburgers. Get in line. We get by the time. So by the time we're like pulling up to the window, I can hear the sirens. Like they're coming. But by the time we get our food and we're pulling out of the drive-through, all the cops are gone. They're already out, like looking for us. So we just pull out of the parking lot and start driving down right there, the main street in Orange County, Tustin Avenue. We start driving down the street, and I remember eating, and a freaking motorcycle cop comes flying past us with his lights on. So I tell him like, hey, just cut through the parking lot of the mall right here. I had an apartment that was right across the street from the parking lot. And if we could have just made it to the apartment, like I felt like I would have been good. Even though his car was already seen, I didn't
Yeah,
think about all that shit. I was being selfish as hell.
yeah.
But by the time we're pulling out of the parking lot, another cop comes driving by and slams on his brakes and then backs up, and then they just stormed in, dude. Came in tough, and they pull out guns. They got guns, and he looks over at me and he goes, "You robbed that effing bank, didn't you?" And I just looked down. I was like, "Yes, I did." And he was like, "You mother
Oh
effer, you mother."
my
And it's like, driver with
god.
your left hand, reach over. So I'm stuffing
Oh,
money down
shit.
my shorts. and they pull us out. They had to walk me over by the dumpster, and it's a windy day, so they're pulling down my shorts. Money's flying everywhere.
Oh
They ended
my
up
God,
taking.
man.
So my buddy, he's a heavier set Armenian dude, and he's starts complaining of heart problem. So,
Okay.
anyways, the detectives take me down to the police station. They go through. I tell them the whole story. Tell them about everything that transpired, his role in it. And I knew that if I just tell the truth, they're gonna go interview him, and he's gonna tell the same story. And they're gonna
Yeah.
let him go. And
Yeah.
when I was telling them, the cops were like, there's no way you can tell me that this guy didn't know that you were robbing that bank. And I'm like, seriously. And they're like, and if he didn't, that's pretty messed up. You had your
Yeah.
homeboy rob a bank,
Yeah.
be the getaway driver when he didn't even know he was the getaway driver. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, dude, I
You
see
should
that now.
like, bro, I wasn't planning on getting caught. You know?
Yeah, I thought I was just gonna break them off a couple $100.
Yeah. I was gonna get. He was gonna make some money off this, man. Don't make me out to be the bad guy here.
Yeah, he got a free double animal style. I mean, come on.
Yeah. In and out, in and out, in and out. You know.
So, anyways, so they go down to the hospital, they interview him, and I just heard that right when they told him he was free to go, he started ripping everything off and was like out of there. So nothing ever ended. He never like went to jail or did any time. I guess he was pissed off because he said his car was flagged, that it was used in a crime. So,
Yeah.
anytime going forward, if he got pulled over, like, I mean, in hindsight, I look back on it, all the wreckage,
man.
all the wreckage that I mean, we've all been there. We've all done that.
Yeah,
shit.
we have, man.
So yeah, that's when I knew I was going to prison, though.
Yeah, yeah.
I knew bank robbery. I was going to prison.
I mean, so how much time did you get, and what was the official charge?
So I got robbery. The way they got me on the strike in a violent crime, the note was threatening, because I threatened them, like, if they call the cops, I'm gonna do A, B, and C.
Okay,
the note was threatening, so they hit me with the violent crime. So when I was in county, they were trying to give me 6 years with 2 strikes, and I knew that was crazy. What's that? Right off the gate. 2
strikes off break?
Yeah, right out of the gate.
They do
and I had a public defender, and the public defender was kind of whack. And my family at the time was like, we'll get you an attorney, but they had already spent so much money on attorneys, dude. I knew I needed to go away for a while. That was the only way I was gonna get my head straight. I've been in and out of rehab 10 to 12 times, county jail, tried everything. I knew this is what I needed to happen to me. And so I just ran with the public attorney or the public defender, and I went back multiple times, and they tried to give me 4 years with 2 strikes, and then they finally got it down to 2 years and 1 strike. And I don't know if you've ever been, I'm sure you've been in county jail and going to court in county jail. That shit sucks, man. You're there all day, you're up early, like it sucks. So
it does. It takes a lot out of you, believe it or not.
It drains you, man. And so by the time I signed, I was like 2 years in a strike. Cool. Got back to the cell, jumped on the phone, called my mom. My mom just happened to be with my uncle. They were on a camping trip. And I remember being on the phone and, told my mom, like, hey, I'm finally signed. I'm going upstate. And my mom just started crying, dude, broke down, and I'm over there like on the phone, like trying to hide myself, because that gets you,
That's
mom
stressful,
started
man.
crying, like, that breaks me. But then my uncle got on the phone, and he like walked away from my mom. He's like, all right, dude, here's what you need to do. He's like, don't be looking at anyone else. Keep your mouth shut and your eyes open. And if somebody challenges you, you fight them. And that was him putting me up on point, But I'm not gonna lie, dude, getting off that bus at reception, and at this point I was 29 years old. No, 30 years old. I just turned 30. So, I had a good 12-year run of staying out of the pen, and then finally 30 years old, finally caught a charge that sent me upstate.
We just learned something else, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't matter. Time, it don't matter how many years go by. The courtroom, I'm sure Did they bring up any of those past charges
Oh
10
yeah,
years ago?
they
There you go.
knew. They knew. I mean, I had gun charge. I had all
Yeah.
kinds of dumb little shit,
Yeah. Yeah.
that adds up,
Yeah.
But
The courtroom never forgets, ladies and gentlemen. Never
no,
forgets. It doesn't matter you did 10, 15, 20 years good behavior. You ain't caught a speeding ticket. You screw
yeah,
up, they're going to bring all that shit back and they're going to lock your ass up for even longer. That's usually how it
yeah,
goes. So
yeah. So we went to reception, man. We went to
yeah.
reception prison.
Where was
That was
this
a whole
at?
nother. That was in Wasco, up
Wasco.
by
Okay.
Bakersfield, and being your first term in prison, they're gonna ask you to do something.
Yeah.
And I remember a white Crip came into the building. We were
Oh
on
shit.
on A yard, and I remember like two of the buildings were mainline, and the other three were reception. So
Uh-huh.
we were on like level 3 living. You and your cellie in a cell, where a lot of the other yards are like dorm living, or you got bunk beds and all that stuff, in the gym and stuff. But I remember a white Crip came into the building, and my cellie was a big old white boy, big old skinhead, and he was pushing for this white Crip to get removed, and we were
Uh-huh.
out on the yard, and he's asking all his comrades, like, this dude's the enemy, like he's got to go, this and that, and all of the comrades were like, well, I went on the last one, and I'm paroling in 2 weeks, or
Oh
and
shit.
I knew they were gonna ask me at some point, so I finally just was like, "Hey, Sully, like, I'll roll with you." And he was like, "See this first termer, this new boot, he's got more heart than all you." And then they all started raising their hands, like, "Oh, we'll go." But they went, they ended up going to the blacks and telling them, like, "Hey, this dude's got to go. He can't be here." And they said, "Nah, he's riding with us." So we ended up that's you want to hear that story?
Yeah. Y'all ended up doing a
Yeah,
little mini riot or something?
so they rode for him. So they
Well, I
came
mean,
back and said,
did you have to go with your celly and do anything to him first before they
"Oh
all
yeah,
this happened, or
yeah."
did y'all start talking, or what?
So the blacks came back and said, like, "Nah, he's staying." So my celly came back and said, "Okay, we're gonna get this dude. We're gonna get him. We're gonna get rid of him." Um, the plan was it was going to be me, him, and another skinhead from San Luis Obispo, or no, he was from Santa Barbara. Sorry. And our plan was to get him in the chow hall, or get him just leaving the chow hall, because there were less blacks around, and we had a better shot at no one else jumping in.
Yeah.
And so at that time, Wasco it was freaking cold. It was foggy, and used to, when we would go to chow in the morning, we'd walk in a straight line across the yard into the building, sit down, and then they release table by table, and then you walk in a straight line back. Well, his cell was kind of close to ours, so so our plan was, as soon as we were coming out of the chow hall, we were going to get him. We were going to jump on him. And so we get into the chow hall. We let the races know. We let the homies know that, hey, we're gonna put the yard down just out of respect, so they keep their people back, so there's nothing, nobody accidentally gets hit or anything, because that'll
Yeah.
be it's risky doing it in the chow hall. There's a lot of people around.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're coming out of the chow hall, and we're walking in a straight line. Well, we're kind of trying to fall back and wait for this dude. And the gunner in the tower, starts yelling over the loudspeaker, "Straight line, straight line, keep it moving, keep it moving." So we're like, shit. So we walk into the building, and my cellie's plan was, the faucet in our cell wasn't working at the time, so we didn't have any water. So he went up to the guards at the podium and said, "Hey, can I grab a bucket and fill it up in the day room and take some water back to the cell?" So they were like, "Yeah." So they popped our cell. So me, him, and this other skinhead are waiting by our cell, and there were a couple other white boys that were standing around just keeping point, just in case the blacks were going to jump in. So this white Crip comes walking in with his celly, and his celly saw what was going on. His celly knew, and right when they
Yeah.
walked into the building, the celly split left and just left him hanging, dude. So
Damn.
he's walking across the day room, and he's got his jacket on and his beanie, and my celly's filling up water in the bucket, and he comes over by the cell, and I remember him dropping the bucket. He's coming around the bunks, and he's like, "All right, let's go." And so me and this other white boy take off after my cellie, and my cellie's fucking running at him full speed, dude. And my cellie's a big dude. And right when he gets to him, this guy's just walking, sees us running at him. He doesn't even lose step, dude. Just walking. Right when my cellie gets to him, he just pulls his coffee mug out of his jacket and just boom, just racks my cellie and just splits his forehead open and just drops him.
Shit.
So right when that happened, the other white boys that were keeping point all panicked and rushed in. So now there's 5 of us on this one dude, and I don't know if you've ever been 5-on-1, but you guys are doing more damage to each other than you guys are actual him, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like fighting back, and he gets out of his jacket, and they got the whole yard down, and they're yelling, "Get down, get down." And he gets away from us, and we chase him down over by the podium, and we get him on the ground, and we're booting him. I mean, beating the pants off him. And I just hear that gun go off. Boom. And I hear, so the homeboy Kit next to me, I just hear him start screaming because that block gun just hit him right in the wrist and just snapped his wrist. So now he's on the ground. We're still getting them though, That didn't even stop it. So the cops come running over, and we're getting them. And right when I turned around, I just caught that OC spray right across the face, dude. And I don't know if you ever been sprayed with that stuff, but
yeah,
that took all the fight out of me, man.
Yeah,
I was laid out.
It's damn
I was laid
treacherous.
out, throwing up, you know. And by this time, my cellie's back up on top of the guy, and he's slamming his head in the concrete, going, "You are the enemy." Like,
what?
It was crazy. Yeah,
Holy shit.
They're spraying them. They finally lay us all down. Now they got to lock down the whole prison because it's they consider it a race on race, so they got to figure out what's going on. So they bring in the goon squad. They're taking pictures. They take the homie that got shot with the block gun. They take my cellie, and they take this dude. They got to take them all to the infirmary. They take the other 4 of us, and they put us in the showers, and they're decontaminating us. And then they tell us to go back to our cells to pack up because they're going to shoot us to the hole. So we go back to our cells. They got everyone locked down. Well, at this time, we're in our cells.
They make you go pick your own shit up?
Well, yeah. So they send us back to our cells. They take us back to our cells, and they have us packing up all our own stuff.
Okay.
So then they release the kitchen crew back to their cells, the ones that were all feeding us. So on the kitchen crew were this white Crips homeboys, a bunch of other black dudes.
Oh shit.
And there's probably 5 white boys on the kitchen crew and probably 15 blacks, dude. And right when they get into the building, the blacks rush the whites, dude, and they were beating the tar off the whites, man, making a statement,
I mean,
and that sucks. Being in your cell, watching that, not being able to get out and help them, like, you feel pretty helpless,
And it just adds to the fuel, to the fire.
Yeah, they slammed us for 3 months after that, in a reception prison. That's a long time,
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, in the kitchen, let's say the kitchen crew, you said there was probably 5 whites and, 15 blacks or something like that. I mean, do they work together in the kitchen, or do they separate them even back there?
I mean, I don't know. I didn't work in that kitchen. I worked in the kitchen crew when I finally got to Ironwood. But I know in the kitchen crew in Ironwood, they have the whites and the Southsiders on one line, and they have the blacks and the others on another line. So
that's so wild to me, man.
Yeah.
That's just absolutely wild. It still blows my mind thinking about that, even with the kitchen crew. Damn.
Yeah. It's segregation, man. It's for everybody's safety.
Yeah, that's wild. Would you say that was probably your wildest moment in there?
Yeah, well, so I knew after that I was going to get some clout. And that's a big reason why I raised my hand on it, because I knew, we didn't have to stab him, which there's probably a lot of people that would think that, hey, you got to stab that dude. He's no good. Yeah. But we didn't have to stab him. We were just going to jump him, beat him up. I knew once I got to any other prison, they were going to hear about it, Yeah. And they'd, at least wouldn't be sending me on every little mission as a first timer,
They'll consider it as a little
collateral,
badge of honor. I guess. A little collateral.
Yeah, a little badge of honor, and then you get your letters tattooed on you because you put in work for the county. And But yeah, so they had slammed us after that. Well, they had taken my celly and they had put him in another building. And so then they shot, while we were on lockdown, they shot in this other cat that he was from Fresno, ended up being from Fresno. And he was a J cat too. And then he came into the cell and he was, man, that was a whole nother story. This dude was, he was trying to take advantage of, like, I've always been taught, like you got your celly, like if you got food or coffee or whatever, you hook them up, you split it with them, or you take care of them, you look out
Yeah.
for your celly, Well, this dude didn't have anyone putting money on his books, didn't have anyone taking care of him, and he was just taking my kindness for weakness. And he had done a bunch of time before, and he
Yeah.
knew I was a first termer, so he was like
Yeah.
trying to
Trying to
trying
get
to
over on you.
trying to bully me, and
Yeah.
the whole time we were on lockdown, he was cool. And then when we came off lockdown, he started taking my coffee and giving them to his Fresno homeboys, and all
Oh
his other
shit.
Fresnecs. Yeah, and then he'd be like, "Hey, we're out of coffee," and I had already, gone on this other mission. And when my counselor came and saw me, I was slated to go to fire camp. Like I was gonna go to fire camp. They already put me going to fire camp. So when my
Yeah.
counselor came, he had saw me before we got that white Crip. Well, he came back after we got the white Crip, and he's like, "Oh, you want to be a tough guy? You want to be a tough guy?
Ain't no
Well, you
fire or
just
nothing.
yeah, you just jacked your points up to level 3 points. You're going where the tough guys go. You're going with the big boys." And I
Yeah.
was like, "No, I
Yeah.
want to go to fire camp.
Fire
Uh,
camp. Fire
fire
camp,
camp,
please. Fire camp.
please. I'm
Fire
sorry."
camp.
So anyway, so they, I didn't want to get another fight, especially with my celly, dude. And this guy had like a 14-inch freaking bone crusher underneath his bunk, man, like a
Yeah.
big old banger that he had hidden under there.
Mm-hmm.
And all my homeboys knew that he had it in there, and they're like, "Dude, you got to get out of that cell. If they come and they search that cell, you're going down for that knife too. Doesn't matter whose bunk it's under, and in there you can't tell on anyone, and you look like a bitch if you're going to the cops and saying, 'Oh, I got to move cells,' So I would tell him like, 'Hey man, I don't feel comfortable with you having that, you know, big ass bone crusher.' And he'd be like, 'Oh, don't worry about it. You're a first termer. You don't know about this.' So finally, like he kept taking advantage, giving the coffee to his homeboys. And I finally got to the point, dude, where I was like, man, this guy says one more thing to me. Like, I don't care if he stabs me, I stab him. I don't care, dude. It's to that point, like where I was feeling sick to my stomach. My pride was getting to me, So I'd,
Yeah.
I'd roll my mat up in the morning. I'd sit up there and I'd read. And I'd have my shoes on all day in the cell. And he had said something. He was sitting on his rack and he had said something, and then he called me a bitch. And so I came flying off my rack and I got over by the door because it's wider by the door where the toilet is. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've ever seen those cells, like those level 3 cells, man. They're the locker. You got your locker on one side and your bunk on the other, and sharp edges and a table. And
Yeah.
fighting in those cells isn't fun,
Yeah. It's
And
treacherous.
so I jumped down over there and he's sitting on his rack and he looks up at me and he's like, "Oh, like that?" And I was like, "Yeah, like that." And he jumped up and he starts coming at me and he's got both his hands up like this. And I'm just boom, like caught him clean right out of the gate and just broke my hand. The first punch.
Damn.
And we're just getting it. And it was count time. So it was like super quiet in the building. And I don't know if you've ever been in one of those buildings when two guys start fighting in those cells. It's
Yeah.
loud, man. You could just hear
Yeah.
it. And everybody on the tier could hear it, and they're all on their doors and they're all watching down there. And I'm just getting them. And then they start whistling because the cops start walking,
Yeah.
and they're telling you. So the cops come up and they're walking by and we're both sitting on his rack, and he's trying to look the other way because his eyes just swollen at this point. And we're both drinking coffee, acting like nothing's going down. The cops walk around and they go back to the podium and he gets up and he's like, "This ain't over." And then just boom, 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 boom. We fought. It felt like it was a good hour long. It was probably 10 minutes, but we went 3 different rounds, and by the third round, like I was getting the best of him every time. By the third round, I felt like this dude wasn't going to stop until I kind of let him like maybe get a hit or two. So he, on the third one, he had grabbed his coffee mug off the thing and he was like, hit me a couple times over the top of the head. And then we ended up splitting up. And
That made
ever
him feel a
since,
little better. That made him feel better. He
yeah,
got
it
a
made,
couple hits with
gave
the
him a,
coffee mug.
yeah, but then we come out, we go to chow, and this dude goes to all his homeboys, and he's telling them all like, "Oh, we got to get rid of this dude, man. He hit me when I wasn't looking, and this and that." And thank God for his big homeboy, who was another Fresneck. His name was Mike. He put him in check. He knew how he was, you know. He knew he was a grimy. He was a bully, man. He was running around the building, bumming coffee off people, trying to bully people, beating people up. Like he was just a bully.
Yeah.
And so he ended up putting the squash on it and was like, "Nah, dude, you got in a fight with your celly, you lost. Like take it like a man." And that next night, man, I caught a bag. Like when you catch a bag, they slide a bag underneath
Yeah.
your door at like 3 a.m. It says where you're going. I couldn't have been, because sleeping next to another guy that you just got in a three
Yeah. It's
round,
never. It's never the same. It's never
and
the same.
especially when he's got a knife under his bed, you're sleeping with one eye open, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
You
never the
find out,
same, man.
no, you find out a lot about yourself when you're dead sober and you're fighting for your life inside a cell, man. But I had cuts all over my shins, elbows from the lockers, just,
Yeah.
but
People don't really understand that shit, man. Going to sleep with the enemy, and y'all just got done fighting. That's
yeah,
it's a crazy feeling, man.
that was in Wasco. I ended up
Wasco. That
doing
was
like
still reception, huh?
still reception. I ended up doing like 7 months there, man. I hated that place. No
Jesus.
visits, no yard, barely, no
Yeah.
phone calls. Like yeah, that place just sucked. Once I got to Ironwood, and they sent me to the level 3 yard back down south. Um, got to Ironwood, and Ironwood was cool, man. I mean, you get a job. I was working in the kitchen, and in there, like, and especially when I got to Ironwood, like I just did my thing. I didn't get high. I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink. I just worked out all day, but I was also a stand-up cat. You ask anyone I've done time with, they'll say Dino's a good dude. He
That's good.
level-headed, and yeah, like I didn't burn nobody, and I always fought for what was right. I didn't like them taking advantage or doing stuff over dope or anything like that. I always kind of was able to walk around with my head held high, and ended up doing almost the rest of my time at Ironwood. And then I had 3 months to the house. They ended up transferring me to Centinela, which is down on the border of California and Mexico, another level 3 yard. I ended up finishing up my time there. But yeah, those
Was
level
that
3
was
yards,
that
man.
place all right?
Centinela was cool. Ironwood was cool. I mean, but you almost forget that you're in prison sometimes. You're out
Yeah.
there joking around with the homeboys or playing volleyball or horseshoes, and then somebody's throat gets slit, or the yard goes down. And I mean, you see some, you definitely see some stuff that changes you. you know
Yeah, for
but
sure. I can only imagine, man. I've seen my share, and I can only imagine what other people have seen. Seen much more than me. Well, how long have you been out?
so I paroled in 2011, and um man, that day is like Christmas, man.
Yeah.
You get picked up. I got picked up by my mom and my two brothers, man. And it was like, we hit Arby's on the way home. I wanted that that
Damn,
Arby's sandwich.
that damn cheddar melt, Jank.
Yeah.
Damn, I love that Arby's sauce too.
Oh man, I
Curly
drink that stuff.
fries.
Yeah.
Damn, I ain't been to Arby's in
So
a while, man. But that's cool, man. So you get out, go to Arby's first thing smoking. I
yeah.
mean,
So
uh,
paroled to mom's house and got out, and got a job, and started doing good. And then I started hanging out with some of the same cats, and a couple of old cellies got out, and we were hustling again. And I got back into dope, and then
dang,
it ended up, taking over my life again. Thank God I didn't do anything that got me in trouble again,
yeah,
but I was headed that way. And then April 1st, dude, 2016. I showed up on my mom's doorstep, and I was done. I was done, man. I knew
Yeah.
that all the other times I had gotten clean or stopped doing dope, I always kept drinking or kept smoking dope, trying to get high. Like, oh, I'll just get high, I'll be all right. But you're still in that lifestyle, you're still, going out to the bars, being around those people's, when you're drinking, your inhibitions go down, your guard gets lowered. And with this disease, man, with the disease of addiction, I I got to be on point 24/7.
Yeah.
I always because it's just waiting and lurking to creep in and take over my life again. And I ain't gonna let it, man. I ain't gonna let it. I worked way too hard to get where I'm at. I just passed my journeyman electrician test and
Excellent,
um,
man.
worked for a great company. Got a good woman in my life and
Damn right.
living by the beach, and I can't
Yeah.
complain, man.
Mile
Life's
away,
good.
right? Mile away, right? What was the
Mile
name?
away,
What was the
Redondo.
name again? I forget, but I remember it rolled off.
Redondo Beach.
Redondo Beach.
Out there.
Yeah. I like that. I like that, man. And I love hearing these positive endings.
Yeah.
You say you've been clean since
April
2016?
1st, 2016. So 4 years, man.
Excellent, man.
Just over four
Congratulations, man.
years.
Hey, look, just stay on that right path, man. Don't ever
That's all
go
I know
back
how
to the
to do.
damn pen. I mean, if there's any kind of, a lot of people like to promote what they got going on. You said you ain't got nothing to promote. I mean, do you have any shout outs or just a piece of wisdom you could give to someone that might be going to prison, man?
Honestly, man, the biggest shout out I would just say is like I thought when I was 32 years old when I got out of prison, and I thought, man, who's gonna want anything to do with a 32-year-old ex-con that ain't got nothing going for him, staying at his mom's house, no car,
Yeah,
no job. Like this is not, it's too late, and I I've come to find out that it's never too late.
damn
It's
right.
never too late to turn around what you got going, or if you want to go to school, or there's a trade that you're trying to get into. I mean, I worked hard to get where I'm at, and I'm proud of it. And it's honestly, I I try to live my life a whole completely different way than what I did back then. I don't know if I'm trying to make up for all the shitty things that I've done in life, but my biggest thing is having integrity, is doing the right thing when
Integrity.
when
Hell yeah.
nobody's looking, man. Like honestly, like I'm a big believer in integrity, like like doing something not just to get a pat on your back, but doing it for yourself, so you can sleep at night. And um
Exactly, man. And that's how I feel. I'm like, I want to be able to on my deathbed and say, you know what? I'm ready. I'm good.
yeah,
I lived
yeah.
the right life. I did what I was supposed to do. I helped. I cared. And I have no regrets.
Yeah, and
And
I don't regret anything that I've done, because honestly, I really do believe it's everything that needed to happen to get me to
yeah,
here.
molds you, man.
And I'm the happiest I've ever been, and I'm at a point in my life where there ain't nothing, any kind of negativity that can touch me, man. I'm
Yeah.
on a whole nother level than any of those other cats, and that's I could walk around with a smile on my face, and my head held up high.